So, my dear ones, welcome into this wonderful day, into this wonderful sanctuary. This is the beginning of what is known in the Christian world as Easter week. This is the day when millions and millions of Christians are going home with blessed palms and ready for the celebration of Easter with all of its light and energy. And so it's a good day for us to be thinking about the absolute self. The absolute self. Absolute being that unconditioned state of being free from all limitations. And so the invitation is to look more fully and deeply within ourselves so that we can awaken more easily that awareness of the other aspect of our being, the divine aspect of our being, and get to identify with that aspect more and more and more, so that when we can equally identify with that as we do our humanity, the balance will occur and Christ consciousness will happen consciously. Now, you and I are born conscious, you and I are born Christed, but it's an unconscious awareness once we get here. And then we have to grow back into becoming more conscious of it. That's our only job, so to speak, on planet Earth, is to wake up and remember that we are consciously Christed. And so in this coming week, we're asked to look at ourselves. It's kind of sort of what Walter Lanyon says. He says, well, you know, how can anybody who is judging themselves along the lines of human limited standards ever come to know that power and that presence within them that they can direct toward their good and the good of all life? He said, it's impossible. How can you do that if you're all the time pitting yourself against your own humanity and are limited by what that is all about? Because as we identify with our humanity over and over again, it seems what we do is tell ourselves all about what we can't do, what we're not able to do, what we haven't got. You're telling somebody all power is with you. All power is with you. You're telling that to somebody who may have walked into this room, having cried their eyes out last night, not knowing what to do about their life and living, faced with all kinds of challenges and so on and so forth, not at all feeling anywhere like I'm absolutely, totally empowered and I can achieve the impossible. Achieve the impossible, which is what all the great ones do. Except the impossible is not impossible, because if it was impossible, it couldn't happen. Could it? Miracles couldn't happen if miracles weren't possible. So there's no such thing as impossible. And so today, you and I are called to identify more and more and more and more and more with that inner aspect of our being, with the unseen aspect of our being, with the most important part of our being, the power and the presence and the life force that created us and created us out of itself and then moved into what it created and remains, so that all power is truly there, whether we think it or feel it or know it or realize it at all or not. It's there, and thank goodness we have people come throughout the ages that have shown us it is possible and it is there. And so for that to happen, Ernest Holmes says that we need to fearlessly, it doesn't matter what stage we're at in our life and living, but to fearlessly state, I am the truth and nothing but the truth. That's what he says we have to state. I am the truth and nothing but the truth. And so he also adds to that, you know, we have to come to know eventually that there's nothing out there that is greater than that which is right here, that which is within me, the truth in me that can indeed liberate me and set me free. There's nothing out there greater than it, and yet we go hunting and seeking and searching to find that which will make us better, put us together, fix us up, and all that jazz. So the call again is to identify with the eternality of ourselves, the essential self of ourselves, the permanent self of ourselves. whatever it is called, and cannot be named, but that's the invitation. Identify with who you are in truth. Identify with your own true reality, which is you are the absolute life force being of the infinite intelligence that created you. And you were created out of the infinite intelligence as the infinite intelligence in form. So that's what we have to identify with if we want to do not only that which is possible, but impossible. Again, St. Francis, do what is necessary, then you'll be doing what's possible, and then you'll do the impossible. Now, we wouldn't be told that we can achieve the impossible if it wasn't that we could do. And we can. So we need to get over ourselves now. And maybe today's the day for us to stop telling ourselves, this is impossible, that's impossible, the other's impossible, I'm impossible, whatever's impossible. You know, as somebody once said, it should be taken out of the dictionary. That word should come out of all dictionaries, impossible. Now, there are things that are highly probable and highly improbable, but there's nothing impossible. And that's what we have to know here and now. No matter what your challenge is, no matter how dark it looks, no matter how odious it looks, you have to look at it and say there's something that is already proven and says over and over again and is proved in the lives of others that there's no such thing as incurable, whether it be mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional. No such thing, except thinking makes it so, because water will find its own level. And so whatever your level of consciousness is, from that you will produce the experiences in your life, as I will too, as I will too. So we have to do what Eckhart Tolle says, let God be God by means of you. And what does it matter if Christ consciousness was born in one person 1,500 years ago, because it was 1,500 years when he was saying it. 1,500 years ago, if that same Christ is not born in me every day, it doesn't matter a whit to me if I can't come to that awareness that not only am I this human being with all that possibility, but I am the incarnate word of Spirit itself. I'm the incarnation of God itself. I am indeed the Immaculate Conception. I mean, say this in some company and they'll call you away and put you in a straitjacket and say she's Looney Tunes. Put her away. In another time you'd be burned for it at the stake. And yet, it is the truth, no matter how wicked an idea we have about ourselves, or a poor idea we have about ourselves. That is the truth, and it's the only truth that's going to mend and fix and heal and set us free, eventually. So that's what we're invited to do in this stellar week, this awesome week, is to look at ourselves in terms of what is possible, not in terms of what is not possible. To look at ourselves in terms of our true being and not in terms of our human being with its limitations. Ancient Greece, take you back. Picture this, ancient Greece. And it's time to go to the show. And the show is theater, and the theater are plays. And the ancient Greeks, what they did when they were playing as actors, they wore masks made of plaster. And one was tragedy and one was comedy. And they wore those masks, and it didn't matter what the person in his true nature was. Once that tragic mask went on, that was the persona and the perception that was extended. Even though that might have been the cheeriest and happiest and brightest person in the land, once that mask went on, tragedy was what emerged. On the other hand, the comedy mask would go on. And it didn't matter how miserable the person was, how unhappy the person was, when they were wearing that mask, they were presenting the persona of happiness. And as time went on, we began to get more elaborate in staging, and we had costumes and costumes and costumes, and we became the character whose costume we were wearing. We became that character, and that's who we were. It didn't matter what we were outside of that stage role. That's who we were in the moment, regardless. Now, the same thing kind of happened when you and I came onto this plane. when we came into this plane, we came in loaded with that beautiful lightness of being. We came in knowing exactly and in full consciousness. But as soon as we hit planet Earth, such a dense place, and turned into material form, then it was like we picked up a mask, we put it on our face, we picked up the costume and we put it on ourselves. And then we took a case full of costumes and masks with us as well. So that throughout our humanity's experience since the beginning, since the incipiency of our time in form, we have been traveling with our case full of costumes and our case full of masks, and we have played many, many roles. All the world's a stage, and all its men and women merely players, each with his own role, each with his own part, said Shakespeare. And that's what it is. So you never know what's going on behind the eyeballs of anybody you're talking to. They may have a smile on their face and so on. They could be miserable as all get up. They may just be kind of somber looking and so on and so forth, but dancing with joy inside. So don't ever think you can sum anybody up and judge the book by the cover. You cannot, and neither can I. We've done it in the past and we've been mistaken, you see. And so the impossible is very possible for you and for me to realize. So any one of us can get up out of our dilemma, whatever it is, if we have one, today, and we can move through that in such a way that we'll be the better for it, we're the stronger for it, and the more able as a consequence of it. And as a result, we will have advanced our lives, deepened our lives, and heightened our lives. We can do that. It is ours to do. But we will not do it at the level of human consciousness, at the level of the lowest common denominator. It's not going to happen that way. Nothing is going to happen for you and for me unless we raise up the conscious level of ourselves and we start to think from a bigger and higher and deeper, wider perspective, and know more fully that all good things are possible and available to me. My good is there for me and I should have it, said Emma Curtis Hopkins. My good is there for me and I should have it. We need to start thinking in those terms. Now, people all the time are doing the impossible. All the time they're achieving and succeeding in doing the impossible. And I shared a couple of stories this morning, about when that happens. Now, it's not only mothers whose child is caught under a 2-ton truck that can lift it up and pull the kid out. I don't know how that happens. It would seem humanly impossible, and humanly impossible it is. But they're able to they somehow contact that inner strength, that inner power that they can direct for good, their own and the good of another. And that happens, and it's not that uncommon that people achieve these kinds of things. But I love the story of the person who's been helped across the railway track in a wheelchair, and there are 2 people helping her across the track in the wheelchair. Well, it's not supposed to come at this time, they think, the train, but there's a train coming, and the chair gets caught. And the 2 help as much as they can, and then when they see, hey, it's not happening, they run. The law of self-preservation, they run and leave the person in the wheelchair on the track. Well, as soon as that train gets near enough, that person gets up out of that chair and runs too. They hadn't walked for 20 years, paralyzed for 20 years, and all of a sudden that power was contacted, and up she gets, and off she goes. And there's no explaining this. Can't explain that, Lucy. There's no explaining this on human terms. It's not logical. But this kind of stuff is happening, and it's happening a lot now, more and more. We're hearing about this kind of thing. Again, the young man is going in for his final examination, music examination I shared this morning too, and he thinks he's just being the symbolist that he's going to be examined, he's the best symbolist in the land, and he goes in and he's examined on that, and then they hand him a Beethoven sonata, and they tell him he's got to play this on the piano. He had no idea he was going to be playing a piano. He didn't know how to play a piano. And something in him gets clicked, because he doesn't want to miss this opportunity that this is going to get for him once he passes this exam. All kinds of wonderful doors will open up for him. So he sits down, takes a deep breath, he plays it perfectly. Then they tell him to put the music aside. He plays it again perfectly. There's an absolute silence in the auditorium, and a wonderful cheering and a standing ovation. This man did the impossible. Now, these are extreme, impossible cases I'm sharing with you. But you know, if one of us can do it, all of us can do it. And we're just asking ourselves to take risks. Take risks, for God's sakes, take risks. Just take some risks. Those amongst us who will never take a risk, start taking a risk. And maybe we'll take greater ones and greater ones until we grow in confidence and know there's something greater than I am. I can tell you, that person who played that sonata knew it wasn't them playing that piano. And that person who got up out of that chair and ran knew it wasn't just her or herself that was doing that. No doubt about that. And once you've had an experience, you can't deny it. It's an experience. And you have had little miracles in your life too, and maybe some big ones as well. You have done, I'm sure, the impossible that you never thought you could do. And this is because something in you got in touch with that power for good in the universe greater than you are, that you can direct for your good and the good of all else besides, you see. And that which is within you is greater than that which is in the world. So the world is anything in this experience of planet Earth, three-dimensional, it's anything that could disturb us or cause us to be challenged in any way. So that which is within me. And what is within me is that infinite intelligent beingness. I am an intelligent light on an intelligent light-filled plane. If I had eyes to see, if my soul's eyes could be opened so that I could see this, And you know, we have had all the examples. My goodness, look at everybody is attributing all these miracles to Jesus. They weren't miracles at all. They were the result of his totally at one relationship with the Father. His favorite name for this thing called life, this thing called God, this thing called spirit, this thing called soul. He was totally at one. How did he get totally at one with the Father? He stopped over-identifying with his humanity, and he started to identify more and more and more with the divinity, with the God within him, around him, about him, above him, below him, until eventually he couldn't see any difference anymore. I and the Father are one, he could say. He who sees me sees the Father, he could say. And that was because he stopped thinking in terms of the limitation of his material form, feeling in terms of the limitations of his material form, began to allow that power that was within him to be the guiding light, to be the leading force, to be that from whence he thought and spoke and felt and did from. That's how it happens. That is how it happens. No other way. So I have to put on the mind that was in the Christed Jesus, the consciously Christed Jesus. I have to develop in me the Buddha mind that came into the realization of the unity and the harmony and the oneness of all of life. That's the way we do it. And the thing about it is, you can do it exactly the same way as Jesus did it, as Buddha did it. Exactly the same way, by raising consciousness. By raising consciousness, there is no other way. By thinking differently, feeling differently, doing differently, being differently. I mean, there has to be a change if things are going to change. Well, where does the change occur for things to change? Not in him or her and them and they and out there. It has to occur here. I have to change for things to change, and nobody and nothing else has to. I have to. I am told that the government is on my shoulders, that I am and have within me mighty counselor, Prince of Peace, wonderful, and the government of my life rests upon my shoulders. That means that the power within me, the consciousness within me, gets to rule, and nothing else gets to rule. It's the thinking and the feeling that goes with the thinking causes me to make choices and to do what I do, and to accomplish what I accomplish or not accomplish what I don't accomplish. What you and I do not want to do is arrive at the end of our days full of regrets. Full of regrets. Regrets for things we did and regrets for things we did not do. We don't want to do that. That's not where we want to be when we're ready to take off and go on to a new expanded awareness of life and living. So, maybe this is a good week to look at that and see what regrets remain and then decide to do something about that. What would we be doing? We would be finding solutions. Regrets, solutions. What are the solutions? Remember, it's never too late for anything good to happen. It's never too late for any turnaround to take place. It's never too late for any change to occur. It takes us not even a second. It just takes a new agreement within yourself, and it's a kind of a click. It's not even a word. Now remember that our deepest prayers are not prayed in words. They're not prayed in arguments. They're not prayed in bargainings. They're not prayed in soliloquies, no matter how glorious they are. The deepest prayer is the prayer of pure consciousness. It's the prayer of awareness, acknowledgement, agreement, wordless. Wordless. That's the deepest prayer. That's the deepest prayer. That's the prayer of the Jesus or the Buddha. It's the prayer that knows that power is fully vested in them, and that power responds to them instantly and immediately. And so Jesus only has to say, thank you. Thank you, Father. Thank you that you hear me. Thank you that you always hear me. That's all. And whatever it is that needs to be done and completed is done and completed. That's how they do it. That's how you do it, and that's how I do it. We become worry-free, doubt-free, fear-free. Remember the words that Ernest Holmes used was fearlessly announce, fearlessly announce, fearlessly announce that I am the truth and nothing but the truth. And the power and the presence within me is that which moves upon my knowing of the good that I desire for myself or someone else, and responds in an affirmative way and allows that to come into being as long as I support the knowing that this is so. And so nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so. The only thing to change in anyone's life is consciousness, consciousness, consciousness. I change my thinking and I change my world. There's where it is. So this week, let us go through the week very, very mindfully, very, very mindfully. Let us be present to what is going on. Let us be present to what we're thinking, what we're saying, what we're speaking, what we're feeling, what we're doing. Let us be present, because if we are, we will speak aright, think aright, and do aright, and all the rest of it in this dualistic world. So the whole of science of mind really is the science of humanity and divinity uniting and becoming that unified force of being, so that we can all now be who we are created to be. Now, exactly as everything is. And when you look out there to see only what is possible and what is not impossible, you don't go there. When you look to your life in its affairs, you see what is possible, not the impossible. And as you grow in achieving the possible, you'll be doing before you realize it that which is impossible. That's the way it works. I hear people all the time say, now that was impossible for me. If you had told me I would succeed in that 2 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you, because that's impossible for me at that time. But look, there you are, and you're realizing the impossible. I'm not saying that you and I are going to, lift 2-ton trucks or whatever it is, because our humanity will tell us that's not possible. That's the only reason why we can't do it, because humanity says, no, that's not possible, you'll kill yourself. At least break your back. And that's the reason why we cannot do things like that. But if we knew who we were with one finger, we would lift that. One finger. Or we would maybe even just think it and it would rise of its own accord. That's the power that is within you. But if you keep judging yourself according to your past performance, if you keep judging yourself according to human standards, you're never going to know what I am talking about, and neither will I if I keep doing the same. We have to stop the narrow, boxed-in thinking and the narrow, boxed-in feeling, and be that openness and that liberated and that celebratory and that generous self of spirit by giving it all away. I don't know why we still remain so grasping and so attached to stuff and things, and even persons sometimes. The whole idea is, if you want to have all of that in your life, give it away, and you'll never be able to give it away. The more you create a vacuum, something else will come in. But you're not afraid. You're not afraid. You're not attached. You're just, hey, it's stuff. It's things. I'm giving it away. You know? I am the fullness of spirit. I don't need stuff and things to help me feel fullness. I don't need stuff and things to help me feel I've succeeded and achieved. I don't need stuff and things to help me feel good about myself, because with all the stuff and things I have, it hasn't succeeded in any of that anyway. 5 minutes, yeah, maybe. But after that, no, there's something more, and I need whatever it is that I haven't got. Let me go on another hunt for it, you know, another adventure, another search out there, so that I can feel, for God's sake, for 2 minutes, a little bit of what it is to be fulfilled. It's never going to happen. The journey is always in here, in here. So what are we to do? We're to rise up out of our inertia, rise up out of the doubt and the fear, rise up out of all of the questioning in a negative way, and move into the truth that sets us free. We've got to let go of the negative and move into that thing that accentuates all of the good in our lives, because goodness is at the center core of our being. Fullness is at the center core of our being. Plenty is at the center core of our being. Whole life is at the center core of our being. It's all at the center core of our being. But where are we? Out there looking for it somewhere else, when here's where it is all of the time, and all I have to do is to honor it, recognize it, and say, this is who and what I am, and no less. I am that I am. God, by means of me, is all the time expanding and achieving and releasing and letting go of the nonsense and the non-truth that doesn't exist. I am right here and right now, exactly as I was in the incipiency of my first experience of glory. Glory and magnificence is what I am, it's what you are, and so it is.